Well, good evening. It's your buddy Ryan here, joining you from the Moondance homestead in the windswept mountains of Central California. And tonight I have just a little special treat for you here. We are going to do another shortwave radio on the cheap review. So tonight's feature is going to be the Clooblut radio here, also known as the RD218 FM AM shortwave portable radio. We will just fire this bad boy up and give some thoughts on it, and kind of tell you what I'm about here. It's got nice analog sound there on the side, tuning on the other side. Can't complain about that. It is a cheaper radio, so we do need to temper our expectations here. Obviously, there's very minimal functions on it, but it is a nice handheld form factor. It can easily fit in your pocket. So if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, great. Let's go ahead and start scanning. So we're going to go ahead and switch to the shortwave. There's AM, shortwave, and we can scan. Some limitations of a radio like this, just looking at it right away. It's very nice that it has a sleep and an alarm function on it. However, it would have been pretty nice if they could include any sort of filtering. A lot of these lower end radios don't have a way to change bandwidth and filter out some of the static. So you're going to hear on every channel probably background static on a radio like this. But you have to understand it was probably only $15 to $20 online. All of these radios I'm reviewing are either on Amazon or eBay, very easy to find, and of course all under $50. Now you can see, you're probably curious at this point, what is this fella here? If you're new to the hobby, because if you're looking at less expensive radios, you might be, unless it's just for grins, which is why I'm doing it. But we got a gator clip here. This is leading all the way, boom, to a pass-through I have that goes all the way up 26 feet into the air to my 100-foot long wire antenna. Normally I listen to this from my second story bonus room above our garage, but tonight we're listening to it out in the sunroom since I just installed that pass-through. It's the same 100-foot long wire that we're using at the same altitude, so shouldn't make too much of a difference is my point. But basically, my hope in doing this, as this fella scans, is just that as you're looking at maybe a cheap way to get into the hobby, or if you're just a beginner looking at it, a lot of guys are going to recommend $400 or $500 shortwave or ham radio setups. But you can get something like this for $20 and take it camping with you or on a backpacking trip and have it for grins. One note on these guys though, if you are walking around listening to a shortwave radio, you're going to have a lot of fluctuations because, as it implies, when you're moving, you move around, and so will your radio with you. So there'll be some fluctuations depending on where you're standing, what direction your antenna is pointing, those sorts of things. And even with AM radio as well, because of the ferrite rod that you use to get those signals, basically your antenna for an AM radio, it's highly directional. So, when I used to take a walk and try to listen to Coast AM in my old neighborhood that had sidewalks before we moved to the country, I'd turn the corner, I'd lose the signal unless I was holding the radio at the specific angle I needed it to be, which would make me look like a kind of a weirdo while I was walking with my arm outstretched, but it did work. But maybe something like this, if you're actually planning on taking it for a walk and you're not in a stationary setting, you should consider mostly listening to local FM channels. Those will come in pretty nice. So it looks like our scan is done. I'm going to show you real quick before we have a listen. It does have a light function. A lot of the cheap radios don't. I really enjoy this light. It's very bright. It looks overpowering on the lens of the camera, but in person, I have to tell you, it looks just great. I really like that orange color. Let's turn it up. We'll see what we can hear.
But in the end, I just know how I feel about various things, even if that puts me at odds to this, that, or the other thing.
4840s coming in clear. Looks like we got some data transmissions. That's 5,000 kilohertz coming out of Fort Collins, Colorado. That's my hometown. That's not too bad. It's really clear signal, but you are getting a lot of static in there. With some of my higher end radios, I would filter that a little. Brother Stare on 5850. Brother Stare on 58 or 5890. A lot of religious stuff. Unavoidable on the shortwave. A lot of Colts. A lot of minor static and stuff coming in, so this is pretty, has some good sensitivity. Oh, there we go. Maybe that's Radio Marti. I heard him say Miami. A lot of nonsense signals, a lot of static.
For that particular present-day scribe. When Yeshua gives his teaching in the Sermon on the Mount, he does not do that.
Very clear. Mind you, I'm in California. A lot of these broadcasts are East Coast, U.S. It's 1,000 kilohertz. Oh, I'm sorry, 10 megahertz on this radio. That's atomic clock out of Hawaii and Denver. Interesting. Coming in nice and clear. I don't know, guys. A lot of static. Okay, so definitely a lot less stuff on the shortwave than I would normally pick up. Let's go to a station I know is about 40 miles away down a mountain from me. This is out of Bakersfield, California. I'm up in Tehachapi. And I can usually catch that pretty good with the long wire, but not with just a normal radio. Nothing. Darn. Okay. Well, final thoughts on the Clooblut here. I would say, if you wanted something cheap to take with you on a bicycle ride, you're not worried about getting banged up. Maybe you're going on a kayaking trip. You have it in your dry bag for hopes that maybe it'll survive, gambling on something like this. I would consider it sort of a disposable radio that you can not worry about. That would be the application I would recommend. Every single station, even the super clear ones that should be no problem, are coming in very staticky. and again, with no filtering on cheaper hardware like this, that'll happen. I always try to have high hopes for these things, knowing that they'll work in some use case scenarios, but this one kind of disappointed me, if I'm being honest. I would say the Clooblut here does not have my recommendation, but that's okay. I've reviewed a couple others that weren't too bad so far. If you wanted something in this price point that's going to be a little bit better, there's the Recatest radio I reviewed. If you're willing to spend a little bit more, there's a few other options that you can check in my other videos as well. But this one is about what you would expect for what you paid. So verdict here, you get what you paid for, stay away.